here. I'm really glad that George went before me because I also don't know anything about cows, or calves, or bulls, or breeders. Fortunately, I don't have to be an expert in everything. The Wet Tropics region is very diverse. Grazing isn't a big part of it, and obviously, sugar, bananas get the main focus. There's also a fair bit of other cropping and a little bit of grazing up on the west of the tablelands, just on the edge of the savannah, and a little bit on the wet coast. And the graziers there don't really get a lot of support. They don't have the same access, I think, to information that you guys obviously have. And so I'm working with one of my colleagues at the moment who, in the Herbert region, to try to engage a little bit more closely with some of the graziers there who are particularly struggling with weed problems. They're also quite challenged in that they're, depending on where they are, they're in threatened species habitat zones, so they also need to look at the environmental factors, or they're using ponded pastures and it's creating problems in the wetlands. So they've got these added pressures from outside to rectify that. So what I'm trying to do is to develop a program that's appropriate to them, to try to bring them together, but also give them some tools to bring their, to build skills with them, but also to build a little bit of trust and bridge some gaps there. So that's in summary what I'm doing. So my role is basically to bring people together. I will try to be quick because I know that you're waiting for lunch. Okay. Just really briefly looking at the principle, what I believe the principles of good extension are. We walk onto someone else's land, and that, from the stories that have been told this morning, you've been there for 100 years. I've been there for 10 seconds. I'm not going to try and tell you what to do. And so I think it's really important that I don't just understand that, but that the farmer understands that I understand that. I can go in quite naively, not knowing the difference between a cow and a bull. I do, but I need to go in there with some humility. We also need to find the right way to talk to people. And one way that I found doesn't really work is to use PowerPoints. So it might work here, but not when we're trying to do extension. I guess one of the skills that I've developed is to do a lot of research and to try to find the right people to deliver the information. So there you go, what doesn't work. I do spend a lot of time talking to people and hopefully listening to them. I want to hear what their issues are, I want to learn about their industry, I want to hear about what their kids are doing at school, the latest litter of pups. I want to hear about those people and what their interests and their challenges are. I'm very fortunate that the Regional Landcare Facilitator Network is a national network. Every year we all get together in Canberra, there's about 100 of us, and we share ideas about how we can do things better. We start off by running short workshops or field days to try to gather information. Then we evaluate. And what George was saying about feedback, we cannot develop the programs that we do without feedback. The program isn't for me, it's not for terrain, it's for our graziers, for our farmers. Doesn't matter what the figures are here, this is just an indication of feedback that we got from a soil health forum that was held 3 years ago, and which then set the theme, I suppose, for the delivery for the next 3 years. also in your pack. But these are just examples of, firstly, the Digging Deeper program was what came out of the evaluation of the Soil Health Forum, and how we designed it came out of what farmers said they wanted to do and how they wanted to learn. The cross-regional bus tour was a different thing. I'll just skip through this one. Lots of practical stuff. Really important. The outcomes of Digging Deeper, just briefly, are that we now have a network. Now those people, we've got 50 farmers who went through that program. They don't all talk to each other every day, but they'll bump into each other at terrain functions, at the market, the supermarket, whatever, and whether they're a flower grower or a cane grower or a banana grower, they go ask you about that thing. And so we've created a bit of a network, connecting people and sharing ideas across industries. The bus tour was another idea which went across 3 regions, from the Wet Tropics, and reef catchments, and again using the Regional Landcare Facilitator network to organise that. Each RLF chose 3 innovative farms to go to, and we basically put the trust in our colleagues and took 3 of these little buses around the regions. It was phenomenally successful because we had little buses that people talked the whole time, 12 people in a bus, and we just talked for 3 days. But obviously it opened their eyes. You know, you can learn a lot from other industries. People have similar issues, but they solve them in different ways. Rice paddock in Tully. This farmer said, well, I don't know anything about rice, but I'm going to try it. So he talked about what he'd been doing there. The other picture is at the Institute of Marine Science in Townsville, and that was an absolute game changer for farmers in the reef catchments to see the science behind what's happening to the Great Barrier Reef. And they didn't feel they were being picked on, they just understood a lot more and came away saying, now we know what we can do. So that was a real eye-opener. So the aims were just to expose people to new ideas and to create a network and to stimulate discussion. Now, that might not seem like much, but what's come out of it is that people a year on are still talking about it, and there's still that energy has taken them forward, and they still ring each other to discuss things or email. Yeah, that was a big thing. So, my next big challenge, because I don't know anything about grazing really, is to try to take some of those lessons into grazing for our herbert growers. We're going to run it along the lines of Digging Deeper, which means that we start off with a soil pick day. So we look at it from the ground up. And I was really pleased to hear the presentations on soil and soil health and understanding what nature has given you and looking at the way water flows through the landscape, because these are some of the things that we're going to be introducing to try to engage with those graziers who are a little bit resistant to us even being there. They don't want to be told what to do. They do have problems with weeds, with water, but they don't want me to come in and tell them, and they're going to be, I think, sitting there looking at the people that I've chosen to present to them and saying, what are you going to tell us? So we'd like to build skills in a respectful environment, and we want to strengthen their network. We've got a really strong network of beef producers on the tablelands, the Malanda Beef Plan Group, and I would love to be able to connect them together in the future. Yeah, it's going to run over a few months. We'll just run 1 day a month for a few months, and we'll visit 2 farms, 2 properties a day. There's a little bit of money attached to it, so that particularly the wetlands that's from Greening Australia, they really want to see some wetland restoration, so we're hoping that that will be one of the outcomes. I'll just move on from that. Yeah, so the challenges that we're looking at, woody weeds, monoculture grasses versus wetland weeds, how to manage the habitat for mahogany glider, which is a threatened species. Looking at fire. Fire is a really big thing because in the wet tropics, it's not considered necessary, but we want to look at how fire can be used as a tool. Probably the biggest challenge will be meeting the funding objectives with the graziers' needs. We've managed to sort of cobble together some money from Greening Australia for the wetlands, from the Australian government for the threatened species. There's actually nothing there directly related to the graziers. So I'm going to have to be imaginative about it. So the picture on the right is what we're aiming for in our country, and the picture on the left is what it used to look like. So we know that we can get there, but it's what's the best mechanism, what's the best tool. So as a result of this engagement, I really want to increase the confidence of the graziers in managing their properties. I want to really build trust between them and me, or them and my colleague, and them and terrain, so that perhaps in the future they might come to us as a regional body for information or for assistance. And I guess we do need to understand the ecology of the system. So I'd like people to understand the co-benefits of profitable grazing and environmental management. So that's it.
Does anyone have a question for the wonderful woman we have standing next to me? Fiona? No? What?
Test.
Love it. Hang on, Michael's coming so we can hear you.
I'll be back on.
Is Fiona doing anything in this area or up north?
No, I'm just in the wet tropics, but there will be people here who can help. I actually have a question for you. The fact that you're here indicates to me that you're interested in not just profitable grazing, but also environmental management. And I would be really happy if any of you have any ideas for me as to how I approach people who are not in that thought space. If you want to talk to me over lunch, I'd be really happy. Because